Yo, it's Captain. Not holding his phone. No, still no idea if I'm on the thing or not. But but I have a really jank ass way of holding the phone with a lamp, which is also the lamp I use for lighting. So the lighting's probably worse. But my shoulders hurt, dude. I woke up with my shoulder hurting, and I'm like, it's because I'm holding my phone. So we're not holding the phone. But hello, how are you doing? The this is another captain's log for Star Rail 2.1. I I should really look up what the name of it is. It's like Cat and Pigeons or something. It's the name of the quest. And hold on, I can look. Hold on, because I have free hands. I can look. Into the Yawning Chasm is the name of the patch. We actually made it through some more story today, like a good chunk of story. I did check. It's oh, it's I have hands. It's higher than usual. Okay. I did check. We got through like about another hour of story. And actually it's pretty dense and it's pretty interesting. So so I'll probably just go through it chronologically to talk about it. But I will say just at the start, I love what they're doing. They I think I talked a couple videos ago about how it's more set up like a book, like a narrative book where you can view other people's perspectives, and you get a bunch of, you get like several story threads from different people's perspectives, from like different character visions, like different stories essentially, and then they all weave together to tell the story to you, the player. And that's just an excellent narrative device that you don't. Um, well, let's just say I'm. It's the kind of thing I'm worried about in a game like this, where you pick your character and you pick your name, and usually you have a player insert character into a story like that, and the story's gonna suffer because everything's around them, and they probably can't talk, and no one can say their name because you got to pick your name, and right, like you got to pick whether you're a boy or a girl, so no one can even like really fully, commit to you being one or the other because they don't know which one you picked as a character, as a player. So it's just like, ooh, but this game with its mechanic of like the full on, we're going to shift perspectives now, and just this, all these side flashes that we're getting, is really just like, we let you pick the character and whatever, and that's still a story we're telling, but we're also got these other stories. Particularly where we are right now, we also have Aventurine story, where you get to literally just play as him, and he just becomes the main character instead of the Trailblazer. And I'm like, yes, more of this, please. And we're seeing side flashes. Um, in this one in particular, we see a side flash to Welt and Acheron, and we see a side flash to Black Swan. So we've got essentially like four story threads we're going through for this, and I love the way they're doing it. I said in my like expectations video that I was like, I just hope they can deliver, because this story is complicated and interesting, and it's got like a lot of mystery and a lot of puzzle pieces, and I just want it to, not fall apart. I just want it to be good, because if they can deliver on all this cool setup, we're gonna have a good time. So yeah, I like what they're doing. It seems like they're going to deliver. They're giving me signs that yes, they know what they're doing and they can deliver on this. And that is making me excited to continue. So that's kind of my overall impressions of today. And I guess I'll get into the specifics because it's deep. It's very much like the one from a couple days ago, where it was like, what did I called it, something stupid, mini intro snippets or something like that, mini intro teasers. But it was like that. It was like we got the next installment on each one of those, and it was exciting. Every time they flash to another one, I get excited. All right, we started by finishing Aventurine and Ratio's story, And we just finished the gameplay. It was like all a story day all day. So we walk into Sunday. We have the meeting with Sunday as Aventurine and Dr. Ratio, and it was lots of twists and turns. I liked how much I didn't like Sunday, because he is a very, you can tell he's very high up. You can tell he has a very high and mighty attitude. He thinks very much of his own moral character, and he thought very little of Aventurine and Ratio's character. And it was fun to see, like, Aventurine's like, here's how I'm gonna play him. And he does it. And Sunday's just like sitting there the whole time, like, yeah, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's nice, Aventurine. Okay, now let me tell you how it is. And you're just like, oh shit. And then he like brainwashes. He does the harmony thing on him, where he like does the emotional control, and he's like, okay, you have to tell me the truth now. Um, and I couldn't quite tell what it was. It's like, is he forcing it? I thought he was forcing him to tell him the truth. And for the most part, he does. But then like Aventurine answers one of the questions, like he pauses, and he has like a lot of effort answering the question. I was like, oh, this might be like a battle of wills. I wonder if Aventurine can still lie through this. It's just hard. And then of course they flip it, and they show you, all right, here's, I asked you all those questions. I already knew the answer to them all. I was just testing you. And he shows, and then it backflashes to like Dr. Ratio and Sunday, who Sunday set this up, and he's like, he made a pre-deal with Dr. Ratio, uh to get the answers he needed so he could test Aventurine. And it was like, what? They just keep doing these like side flashes, back flashes, just to blow your mind. And so that was the mind-blowing one. Apparently Dr. Ratio betrayed Aventurine to make a deal with Sunday. And I'm like, first, what, how do I? There's a couple things I want to say. Well, let's stay on target here. I want to talk about Sunday's character, and then probably move to the next scene. I don't want to spend forever. I don't want to dissect every scene and every statement. I just kind of want to give some impressions, because I could dissect all the statements. Believe me, watch the streams. The but one, I don't get Dr. Ratio here. I get the bribe. He wants info on the Stellaron. He's part of the Intelligentsia Guild, and he values just knowing things. But like, he's still with the IPC. He's still trying to do the job. Why would he betray Aventurine here? Because Aventurine's their big ticket to doing the job. And then the last thing we saw on stream was, or the last thing I played today was, you finish with Dr. Ratio and Aventurine again, and Dr. Ratio is like, okay, you still got to get this done. And it's like, broski, you just betrayed Aventurine. What do you mean you still got to get this done? So it's like he's still on the IPC side because he's working for them, and he still wants the job done. But he betrayed Aventurine anyways. I'm not sure how that works. Is Dr. Ratio not really on the IPC side? Does he really just hate Aventurine that much? Or does he really just want that Stellaron information so much? Another thing, so that's like, what's his motivations there? Another thing is Sunday reveals they have information on Stellaron. I could not remember if they brought up the Stellaron before this. I mean, as a player, we kind of always assume there's a Stellaron involved somewhere, but I can't remember. I know Himiko gave us some like things at the beginning of 2.0 where it's like, this is weird, but we're gonna do it, and we have a couple goals. One is to, see what's going on at the Charmony Festival, see why there's so many people invited, see why there's a mysterious message on our invitation that says it needs our help, and check into some old school trailblazers that we left here a long time ago. I don't remember her saying like, "Oh, and we think there's a Stellaron." Like, I don't think that's been introduced yet. I don't know. Let me know. Let me know if they brought that up or if this is our first confirmation of it. Other things I'm still waiting on confirmation for is like who's dead and who's not, because I still don't believe anyone's dead. However, this conversation with Sunday does make me feel like Robin's dead. You know, I get the kind of impression that Aventurine, because they said he witnessed it, right? I get the impression that he witnessed it in reality. And if somebody's dead in reality, I'll believe they're dead. But we watching people dying in the dream, I don't believe shit. It's a dream. I ain't believing nothing. So even if it turns out Robin's dead, I'm gonna be like, yo, we still don't know about Firefly. We still something weird going on there. So the other thing I want to talk about in that scene, and then I'll move to the others because oh shoot, this might be a long video. Look, I'll try to keep it quick. Is just Sunday's character in general. He's got this like he keeps talking about virtue, and he keeps talking about how the others aren't virtuous. Like the implication is that he thinks he's really virtuous, yet he's doing like really dark things. And I think even Dr. Ratio calls him out on it. It's like he's like, "Oh, I wouldn't have thought of that of the great Sunday," because Sunday was like, "Well, I'm gonna do this because Aventurine's a scoundrel," and Dr. Ratio calling it out on it. It's like, well, you're using scoundrel tactics to deal with him, so doesn't that make you a scoundrel too? You know, but Sunday just like, you know, he's just like, no, I'm doing this because I'm the best, and I am. How do I say this? A person who thinks they are so morally superior to someone else that gives them the right to morally abuse that person because they're not worth it because they're so morally inferior is one, not a very moral person at all. That's the complete opposite. That's like that is the path of evil. You know, I'm so good that I don't have to treat you good. Like that's not what good does. That's what evil does. So that's a really scary thing to see from Mr. Virtuous Sunday. Um, I think I had a second point, but I've forgotten it. The point was that Sunday is scaring me because he's looking really bad. So the thing I can think of is he's always been bad. He's got Stellaron corruption that's made him bad, or he's just really pissed off about his sister and he's willing to do dark things to deal with it. We're taking a long time, and that was the first scene. The second scene, okay, you then well actually then you see an Aventurine's childhood, and you're just like, why are we in childhood Aventurine again? I don't know. I feel like we're going so deep into his backstory, and it looks like he's gonna be a boss. I'm just like, are they gonna kill Aventurine? Are we learning his whole story so they can just kill him off? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. You guys probably already know. Um, you don't have to tell me or anything, but yeah, we get a little of a story of how he's saved a necklace for his sister, and she reprimanded him, saying that life's too precious and dangerous there, and he gets mad at the gods for making his life so hard. And I postulated that maybe that's why he's into gambling and luck, because it's like his way of coping with how bad his life was, his circumstances were. He just had bad luck, and so he can just, you know, that's how he deals with it. And he's lucky, so he can deal with bad situations because he just lucks his way out of them, and everything's luck to begin with. It's just it doesn't matter. Everything's luck. I don't know. But I don't have much to say about that. Then we go to our little scene with the Trailblazer and Himiko and March, and it's just a fun little scene. It's mainly like a fun little scene to see a cameo from Topaz and the Bumbling Fools gang, which was hilarious because they got in trouble with Topaz again, and it was just great to see Topaz. Um, it's hinted that she's there because there's two Stonehearts in the previous scene, and one of them is Topaz's. Presumably, this is the deal that Aventurine calls her for at the end of the Urillo bonus chapter, where she gets a call and is like, "Oh, you got to help me with something," and she's like, "Fine." And this is apparently it. She lent him her stone art, so she's here. I don't know if he contacted her. I don't know what's going on. Um, I don't know how that works. So far, it just seems like a nice cameo, and it was fun. It was fun to see Topaz again. I could say things about Topaz, but this video's been long already. I still have more to go. Then we like go meet up with the guys that we beat up, who were attacking Firefly, and March and Himiko are like, what did you do while you were gone? While we were gone?" And, and you're like, "Ugh." And then we go to the next scene where it's like we're trying to find Gallagher, right? Because we're like, we need to investigate this murder. We need somebody high up. You know, we've just been reminded that we met Gallagher. Let's go talk to him. And then we go over to him, and we run into the other guy we beat up when we were with Firefly, who we mind controlled him and stuff, and he was still messed up. He was like, please don't mess with me anymore, man." And it was like, oh, I felt terrible. And March was like, "Hey, didn't you say you had like some mind control powers? Just use those." And you're like, "March, no." And she's like, "No, it'll be fine." And you're like, "This is just what happened with Firefly." And so then you do it, and then he's just like, "Ah, I'm so happy now." And he runs off, and March is like, "What the fuck did you do to him?" And like, "March, you made me do this." And then so it was just like you showing the girls like all the crazy stuff you got up to, and they're just like, "Who are you? What is going on?" Anyways, then you meet Gallagher just for like a brief second, and he's like, "Yo, let's talk about this somewhere else." And it just fades. So it's just like a fun little scene in between all these. Then you get a serious scene between Welt and Acheron. And honestly, I could have made the whole video about that and talked about the Honkai reference, the Honkai Impact reference, because it was amazing. This video has already been so long. I am concerned. It's supposed to be like 10-minute videos. Um, first, I'm surprised that Acheron's still hanging out with Welt. They had like a little threaten each other kind of thing, then kind of like a tenuous agreement, and I guess they've just been like chilling, sharing information. I guess it's just like right after the last time we've seen him, because the next scene we've seen is also right. The next scene we see is also right after. So I think we're just like side flashing and getting the next little bit. So maybe it just hasn't been very long, and so it's not too weird that they're still talking with each other. But Acheron tells um, Welt about all the kind of dark things she's seen, and it's actually a really heavy atmosphere scene as you're sitting there in golden hour, and the fun but eerie music is playing, and she's telling you about all these fun and fantastical stories that have a dark side. And like, oh, these laborers that just work all day and never get to see the fruits of it. They never get any time. They never get any time off, or so working in the dream is worth it, right? These guys, the Pepeshis, that they handle all the money all day, and everyone's happy and fine and love their job, but some of them are jumping out windows, presumably because they can't take it anymore, and no one even bats an eye, right? Just, and I think she had 4 stories that were just like, yo, this place ain't as bright and candy as it looks, right? There's a dark side. And the whole time you're just kind of in golden hour hearing that music that's fluffy but has a weird undertone to it. So it's just, we're really starting to see more of that dark side of Pinacone, which we know is there, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. And she brings up the fact that this dream cannot continue because people have their limits. And again, here's Acheron talking about ends, right? It just seems like everything we've seen from her, everything she's done, is talking about ends. She's really involved with the ending of things, and here she's saying this dream has to end because people have limits. And you're like, ooh. And then like Welt gets to talking to her about what's going on with the hunt and stuff, and she's like, I'm not. We already know she says she's not part of the hunt, and she's like, "Yo, I'm not gonna tell you that. Let me tell you something else first." And then she makes a reference um, to essentially that trailer we saw, where they had the twin worlds next to the black hole sun, and she's the one that finally wins the battle, defeats everyone, and all it did was end everything. And she just attacks the black hole. Um, is she an emanator of nihility? Is that how she got nihility to notice her? Because when it was all over and she realized that it was all pointless because this damn black sun, and she attacked it. Is that what happened? So it was a wonderful reference to all of that and this kind of story. But actually, that happens in response to Welt's story. And Welt's story is like, let me tell you a story of my home world. And you're like, my home world? That's Earth. That's the story of Honkai Impact. That's the one we know. Well, tell us about the Honkai. Tell us about the Honkai, you piece of shit. You never said anything about the Honkai. You won't even say the name. That's in the name of the game, but you won't say it. But he just tells a story. He just makes a reference. I thought he was going to talk about Otto, to be honest, or maybe the first Welt. Instead, he talks about Kevin. He doesn't say Kevin, but he talks about Kevin. He talks about the end of Part 1 in Honkai Impact Third, which we all thought was going to be the end of Honkai Impact Third. He talks about the end of that and how it was also a man thought he could put everybody in a dream and it would be okay. And I was like, yo, that is a pretty wild parallel because that was Project Stigma. It was like, well, humanity can't make it through the Honkai, so what we're going to do is we're going to shove them all into a dream reality where they can all be happy and pretend their lives are good, and that's going to create some sort of spiritual entity, the spiritual atom. It's a little wild. The end of Part 1, Honkai Impact Third, and then that's going to be strong enough to stop, prevent, like protect from the finality, and at the same time it's going to be strong enough to create like new entities. The oh god, what do they call them? They weren't were they stigmas? I think they had a different name for them. Forms. They called them forms. But those would come out of the dream and continue civilization on. The humans would be tucked away in their utopia dream. These new like ideas would distill out and come out based on the human, thoughts and ideas that they're, tucked away all together in the dream. And then these new entities would come out and continue civilization because they could live through the Honkai, right? They could live through the end of the world. It was wild, okay? It was wild. But it was a really interesting parallel. I had forgotten because there's so much going on, and with the rest of it, I had forgotten. Oh, that's right. Yeah, humanity's tucked away in a happy dream, and it's supposed to be great. Part of the story is you actually have to go talk to people and be like, this dream is not what you want. You want to live. And people are like, what are you talking about? My life sucked. I was dying, or I was mistreated, or I had all these problems. You wouldn't tell me that I want to go back to reality? And it was really a touching whole sequence, particularly with Teresa. She was helping the kids, learn how to learn again instead of just go to school every day. Um, and then she has to protect all the people's dreams. She could use them to feed the flame, and because they're trying to save the world, right? She's like, I could sacrifice their dreams, save the world, and it would probably kill them, but we're trying to save the world here. And you're like, oh God, Teresa, don't. You got to make the right choice. You're the good character, like morally good. And she does it. She make God. It's probably one of my favorite scenes in Part 1, the end, in the end of Part 1. And there was a lot of favorite scenes there, but just Teresa not letting us down and finding a solution, and like doing a sacrifice, and then it paying off and working out. And God, it was a scene. Teresa's one of my favorites. She's the best. Um, anyway, anyways, so but it was a neat parallel. These people in a dream thinking everything's great, but it's not actually great. And Acheron saying that's what's happening here. These people are in a dream, and everybody thinks it's great, but it's not actually great. There's problems, and it can't last. And I'm like, yo, how is Pinocchio gonna end? Are we gonna break this whole dream world? Are we gonna like shut down Disney World? Like, what's going on here? um, so that was interesting. But Welt tells the story about, Kevin and how he tried, he's the Icarus parallel, and how he tried to fly to the sun, and it melted his wings. But it wasn't just to fly to the sun. It was to show others that it could be done, in the hopes that others would surpass him. And that was a big theme in part one, the end of part one, where he's like, Kevin's like the bad guy because he doesn't want to do this big evil thing, but he has to save humanity, and it's the only way he knows how. And so he's there, he becomes the opponent because he needs people to surpass him. He can only go so far, and he his wings melted. He couldn't go any farther. He couldn't save people any other way. So he had to do this horrible thing that he didn't want to do because he had to save people. And your heroes in Honkai Impact are the ones that take on Kevin to prove they can surpass him, to prove they have the strength to save humanity in a better way. Um, I think Honkai Impact Part 1 did its villains excellent. Its two main dude villains, Otto and Kevin, I think it did them great. I think they were great. Otto's one of the best villains I've seen. Um, and Kevin, I think, was just to see him as a hero, and see him as a villain, and see him in between, and see him what's going on, and how it all wraps up. And even gets like a little bit of a happy ending somehow, kind of. And it's fantastic. So it was nice to have that reference. And then he made that reference to Acheron, and then Acheron references her world that had a similar scenario, but like she just had to kill him by herself, and it wasn't. It didn't. We did. They didn't get a happy ending, and it's like, oh man. And so you see these. Hoyo likes these reflections of things. The same story, but like a little bit different. The same story, but like a little bit different. What if this story? What if it happened this way? This story, but what if we're missing this character? This story, but what if we're missing? So it's like you get the idea that her world was like the tragedy of Honkai Impact Third, because it is the tragedy. But the whole point of Honkai Impact Third is tragedy is the birth of hope, and so it's a very hopeful story. So it's like Acheron's like, yo, no, we didn't have hope in my world. It didn't work out. It's like, oh shit. And so she's like, I'm not who you want me to be. I've been around. You meet people that you think are the same as others, but they're not. And it was kind of just a whole scene for people who played Honkai Impact. Is what I felt like. I don't know what it was like if you didn't play Honkai Impact, but the end of part one, I did. It was lovely, but it was kind of cool because Welt, like, what's Welt's motivations? Is he just, oh, I'm a trailblazer now. I got sucked into another universe. I'm a trailblazer now. Or is he like, I got sucked into another universe and I found Himiko, and I'm not letting her go. And as far as we know, the next person he's seen is May, Acheron. And he's like, maybe his motivations are like, oh, should I not let her go too? We don't know. We don't know what Welt's doing. He won't tell us about the damn Honkai. We don't know what he's doing. So it was a really cool scene just for fans of Hoyo for that. And then there's only two. Those are the two biggest scenes I wanted to talk about. The first one and that one. There's only like two more scenes, and one of them we're not even done with. Then we just get a quick side flash to Black Swan, and it continues. She answers the phone that she heard ringing the other day, and it's like a cowboy, and I think the cowboy is the character they introduced, that they drip fed the other day, the fucking cyborg cowboy, and he's like, Acheron, I don't know who you are or what you're doing, but you're lying, and I'm gonna kill you to prove it. And you're like, what? And it's like, oh, it's because he's a Galaxy Ranger, and he presumably the lie is Acheron's not a Galaxy Ranger, and he's like, you're bringing, I'm gonna kill you because you're not one. And Black Swan talks to him, he's like, I'm not with Acheron. Can you tell me about this whole thing? And he's like, oh, get me, warm up a whiskey for me. I'll be there soon. I was like, oh, that's cool. What a nice little another little teaser. And then the last thing we see is Aventurine and Ratio, and you start playing as Aventurine again. And Ratio's like, all right, buddy, you got to get this done. And then that's where I was like, didn't you just betray him? What do you mean you still care about getting this done? What? What do you mean you still care about getting this done? But apparently he does. Um, and Adventuring, I didn't talk about it, but what Sunday did to him because he lied during it, he only has like 17 hours to live. So he's on a timer because he lied under the ritual that Sunday put him in. So it's crazy. So Ratio's like, here's the thing. Take this if things get really bad. And you're like, that's probably not good because Ratio doesn't like this guy, has already betrayed him. We have no idea what this is. We have no idea what it's gonna do. Um, and then you play as Aventurine and the screen's still all wonky, like when I've been very tight with my hands because I don't know how much you can see. Um, the screen's still wonky because he's under the curse that this ceremony brought him, and the quest is just all right. You got your money back. Start paying people off to make this work. Because Aventurine was still quite confident that he could do it, but he didn't tell Ratio what his plan was because he's like, "You fucking betrayed me. I'm not gonna let you in on my plan." And then that's where we left it. That's as far as we got, and it was just like for yesterday we played and just did some like map exploration to today to just be hit by like bam story, bam story, bam story, bam story, and just like boom, 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 and I'm like, yo, Pinacone is delivering so far, and I am excited. I like what they're doing. I like where they're going. They're making me really feel like they're gonna pull this off, and I'm quite excited. I know that this patch isn't the end. I know you get like another to be continued. If I had to guess, it's gonna finish Adventurine's story. Um, so we'll see where that goes, and that's kind of why we're seeing him so much. I'm wondering if we're gonna play as other characters. Are we gonna play as Black Swan later? Are we gonna play as Acheron later and see their perspectives? I don't know, or is it just a fun thing they're doing with Aventurine? I don't know, but I'm loving it. I'm quite excited to continue. Um, I don't know. I could probably think of more things to say, but this video has been quite long enough. I hope it's recorded because I can't see it to even tell. Uh, but that's it. That's what I got. I'm excited and I wanted to share some of it and just go over it and tell you all sorts about crazy stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you had a good time. Um, would probably be a little bit before I play Star Rail again, because we actually ended up at a really nice stopping point. So we'll get to chew on this for a little bit, but when we come back, I'll be back to talk about it. But that's all I got for today. So I hope you have a good one, and I hope you're doing great. And I will see you around. Have have a good one. Work on outro. See you, folks.